Good morning. Welcome to day 6. So we finished up chapter 1 in the first 5 days, establishing really the foundational context that Jesus is the Word that became flesh. He made his dwelling among us. He was filled with grace and truth. And then we see John the Baptist enter the scene, and in John's humility with wisdom, he deflects all the attention he had been receiving, puts it on Jesus, says, he must increase, I must decrease. John's disciples leave John to follow Jesus. Jesus calls his apostles, right? And they're following him. And this is like the official launch of Jesus' ministry. Jesus is in his somewhere around 30 years old. Scholars might, disagree by a few years, but I think the general consensus is he's around 30, 31 years old when he starts this earthly ministry. So we're going to pick it up at chapter 2, and we're going to see this first tangible sign, a miracle that Jesus performs, and we're going to talk about it. So it says the next day, this is the next day after the dove descended on him and basically anointed Jesus. It says the next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him, "They have no more wine." "Dear woman, that's not our problem," Jesus replied. "My time has not yet come." But his mother told the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. So Jesus told the servants, "Fill the jars with water." When the jars had been filled, he said, "Now dip some out and take it to the master of ceremonies." So the servants followed his instructions. When the master of ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, though of course the servants knew, he called the bridegroom over. "A host always serves the best wine first," he said. "Then, when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now." This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. And after the wedding, he went to Capernaum for a few days with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples. Okay, so let's talk about this. Now, does it strike you a little bit odd that like the first miracle Jesus performs is he turns water into booze? I mean, I don't know. That's what happens, okay? Now, scholars kind of draw some different parallels to this. Some say that, in this region where Jesus is, there's also a Greek presence there. And of course, the Greeks were polytheistic. They worshiped many gods. They had gods of rain. They had gods for different things. And there was one god that, was a good booze maker, and that was Diocletus, I believe was his name. And there was a fabled story about how at one time they filled these same kind of containers with water, and then the next day they went into this area, and that water had been turned into wine, and that was credited to this Greek god. So some scholars think that this is Jesus showing the expression of going from a fabled God to I am the real authentic creator God who controls all things, including matter, and I can turn physical water and take the fermentation process that requires great expertise and a lot of time, and I can take all those physical realities of physics that need, and all these chemical realities that need to take place, and I can just do them at an instant, according to my good pleasure, okay? And there's power in that, okay? The other one, I'm more in this camp, other scholars think that this is a fulfillment of prophecy. Remember, we talked about a prophet. A prophet is someone that speaks for God. Oftentimes, they foretell the future. They speak in puzzles, or they'll say something about what's going to happen. And in the book of Isaiah, one of the great prophets of old, who probably lived, I'm going to say 700 years prior to Jesus. That's a long time, okay? He wrote in his scroll some of these foretellings of the Messiah. Some of the most famous ones you'll ever read are like, Isaiah 54, 53, 54, 55, where it literally talks about the crucifixion of Christ, something that to this day I struggle why, a devout Jewish person, how can you not read those chapters in Isaiah and not see that this is an exact foretelling of Jesus? But that's a side note. In chapter 25 of Isaiah, in chapter 25 of Isaiah, shh, stop. Hey, I'm doing a nice little video. Stop barking. In chapter 25 of Isaiah, there's this other foretelling, okay? And it says that when heaven is going to meet earth, which is what literally when Jesus comes in flesh, that literally is what's happening. It's God coming to earth. Heaven meets earth. And it says that there's going to be a banquet, an unbelievable celebration, and there's going to be a lot of drinking and a lot of celebrating and fine wine. It literally says that in Isaiah 25. Check it out if you don't believe me. So I'm more in that camp that this is a prophecy to kind of fulfill. And by the way, there's over 1,000 prophetic statements that you can go into the Old Testament where they, said things hundreds of years earlier that Jesus ultimately fulfills. So with that, that's kind of the camp where I'm coming from. Now, let's talk about the miracle itself. A couple of things. First of all, Mary has a particular insight in this. I want you to catch this. So the Holy Spirit, the other part of the Trinity, gives Mary, somehow communicates this insight to her because she brings this problem to Jesus, which seems odd. Hey, they ran out of wine. And Jesus' first response is, hey, it's not my problem. Now, by the way, it is a problem. It's a serious problem because in that culture, if you ran a celebration like that, a wedding feast, and you ran out of wine early in the gig, it would be like a disgrace to the family. It would be socially embarrassing. So Mary is bringing this problem to Jesus. And Jesus' first reaction is like, hey, I'm not in charge of this wedding. Maybe they should have ordered more wine. I don't know. Maybe they should have known the audience that they're bringing. But then it's interesting because Jesus and Mary are perfectly in sync after the first statement of why are you bringing this to me? And then what Jesus is doing is he's even unpacking this and unveiling it to Mary and the disciples. So he lets some tension build up because he's such a great dramatic storyteller or a person who does things in a profound and powerful way. He lets the drama build and then he says, okay, get me some of these containers and fill them with water. And they do. And then, of course, you know the rest. He turns it into wine. The servants bring it to the headmaster, the master of ceremonies, and he doesn't know what happened. All he says is, wow. Most people give the good wine first, and then after people have a little buzz on, then they bring out the cheaper wine. But you guys, you saved the best for last, so it's the best. So here's another picture. When God enters into a situation, when Jesus touches something and transforms it, it is the most richly blessed event or the most richly blessed situation when Jesus touches it, right? He's the God that transforms things. And he doesn't just make water into wine. He transforms regular common water into the most amazing, delicious wine. He takes what would take incredible skill and chemistry and time for the fermentation process, and he just does it upon his wish, right? He just wills it into being. So you see this first miraculous sign, and it says that his disciples are blown away. And I'm certain Mary is like, wow. Whatever intuition she had, whatever insight, spiritual insight she had been given, she sees that Jesus actually carried it out. And it's one thing to believe that someone is chosen to do something. It's another thing when you actually witness water being turned into wine. You're like, whoa, wow. And it says that that sign, that act caused his followers to believe. And then it says from there that the end of the wedding, they move on to Capernaum and they spend some days. He spends days with his mom and with his disciples. So the question is, Jesus is a transformational agent. He is a person who transforms things, taking them from ordinary, common, and making them extraordinary. What part of your life, what part of my life requires the power of Jesus to touch and transform? Think about that, okay? And then let's do what Mary did, which is ask Jesus to act on it, okay? Not just acknowledging that he can do it. Let me take the part of my life that needs transformation, that I recognize needs transformation, and let me bring it to King Jesus and ask him to transform it from the ordinary or even the depraved, and to make it pure, and to make it holy, and to make it excellent. So that's the prayer. Love you guys. Thanks for exploring the first sign with me today, and we'll pick it up tomorrow.